Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to be reviewing the new Nars All the Glitters Light Reflecting Cheek Palette. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Alright, so this is the new Nars All the Glitters Light Reflecting Cheek Palette for Holiday 2023. So this collection also has an eyeshadow palette that is on its way, so that will be my next video. But today we are just going to be focusing on the cheek palette. So they do tend to release these during the holiday season. Sometimes they release one in the summer as well. They didn't this year. This is our only 6-pan cheek palette from Nars. They did release a quad at the beginning of the year though, so I will compare the two. But this is the outer carton. This does retail for $60 US or 73 Canadian. This has a 12-month shelf life and is made in Italy. So here is the inner packaging. So it's very beautiful. It's just this white with the gold lettering, and then it's got gold sparkles along the bottom. I do think it's very pretty and very sleek. I do think it's very, very pretty. I don't know that it's my favorite ever packaging they've done. Normally glitter does it for me, but even though this is really pretty, there's something about it. I don't know if I think it needs a little bit more glitter. I don't know. It just seems a little bit on the plain side to me, but it is still very pretty. So opening up the palette, we have 5 blushes and 1 highlight. So not all of these are going to work for me. I definitely don't think the highlight is going to work for me, but that's okay. I am going to try all of these on today and show you what they look like. But first, let's look at a couple of swatches. So here are the shades Silver Screen, which is kind of like a pinky lavender. Then we have Vertigo, which is kind of that red. That one's intimidating. And then we have City Lights. So definitely veering on the orange side. I definitely feel like we're getting some variety in this one. So then we have the highlight in the shade Wild Side. Then we have Hotspot, which is a really beautiful peachy pinky nude. And then we have Sabrina, which is also very pretty. So that is what the palette looks like. So this looks really pretty so far. I also forgot to mention that these shades are all limited edition as well. So the only other cheek palette I have from Nars is their Orgasm Foreplay Blush Quad from earlier this year. And while not identical, I think you can see they're very, very similar. Okay, so you can see on this side I have the Orgasm Blush Quad, and on this side I have the closest shades in the new palette. So you can see they're not identical, but they're close enough. The highlight shades are very, very close. The others aren't identical, but I do think they're close enough. Let's get to putting this new palette on the cheeks because I'm really excited about this one. I know I'm going to have to take these off a couple times, so I think I might actually I might end with this one in the middle because this is the one I'd like to wear all day, and I'll try the rest of these on separately. So I think first I'm gonna dip into Sabrina. I really want to see what Sabrina looks like. I do think it's going to be too deep for me. I will mention I don't have any bronzer or anything like that on right now. I just wanted you to be able to really be able to see the blush colors. And this is more of that baked chalet formula, so you're not going to get any kick up or anything like that, but you might get a better color payoff if you use natural hair brushes because they do tend to pick up a little bit more. All right, so that is the shade Sabrina. Not bad, actually. I didn't think it would work for me. It's definitely not going to be a #1 go-to, but it's not bad. I definitely could probably build it up a little bit more. I kind of thought it might end up looking really dirty on me, and I don't think it does. I think it works. Again, it's not going to be a favorite, but it's definitely one I can still get use out of. So that is Sabrina. Grabbing another brush, I think I'm going to go into City Lights, which is this very glowy kind of orangey blush over here. I think this one could almost maybe serve as a highlight on deeper skin tones. I think that would be quite pretty. Looking at this now, I don't even like it as a blush. Yeah, it's way too glowy, and it's very, very orange. So that is the shade City Lights. So we have Sabrina and then we have City Lights. Surprisingly, I like Sabrina a lot more. I think it's a lot more flattering. I definitely don't love that super glowy look. There is only supposed to be the one highlight in here, but I do think this one could easily serve as a highlight for deeper skin tones. Alternatively, this one might make a really good topper for Sabrina. Let's actually try that. Okay. Okay, used as a topper over Sabrina, I actually don't mind City Lights. I think it kind of lightens Sabrina a little bit, makes it work a little bit better for my fair skin. It adds a little bit of a sheen, but it's not straight shiny orange. So for me, I would definitely use this one as a topper for Sabrina. I would never use it on its own. I really don't like this. As a topper though, it worked really well. Let me take this off, I'll touch up my foundation, and we'll get into the other shades. All right, so I just took off those blushes, cleaned my brushes, and let's now try this red shade right here. This one is Vertigo. I do think this one is going to be way too deep. The brush is definitely picking up a lot more of this one than the others. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna start actually kind of farther back on this one. This one also does appear to have a sheen to it, so I do think it's definitely going to have a shine. I think this would also be kind of a nice topper on top of the Sabrina shade. I'm not worrying about making this too perfect because I am just going to take it off again. But this is the shade Vertigo. Definitely too deep for me. It's definitely got a gold sheen to it as well. I think this might be nice over the Sabrina shade as well. I'm not going to try it like that, but yeah, not a favorite. A little bit too deep for me. So going into Silver Screen now, and this is that more pinky lavender. I feel like lavender blush had a moment and then it disappeared. Yeah, that is, that's very, very light. So again, I think this might end up being more of a topper for me. Okay, so that is Silver Screen, and this one really looks way more like a highlighter or a blush topper. I think it would actually make a really pretty blush topper. As a blush on its own, I don't really like it. I just feel like there really isn't much of a base to it. I do like it more than this red one, but it's definitely giving more of a highlighter or blush topper kind of feel. Really quickly, before I take this off and go in with the blush I'm most excited about, I think I'm just gonna dip into the highlighter in Wild Side, just because I know it's gonna be too deep for me. I just wanna show you what it looks like anyway. So like I said, definitely too deep. Definitely too deep. It'll definitely give me a bit of a cast, but I still wanted to show you anyway. Let me take these two off and then I will put on Hotspot and then share my final thoughts. All right, let's get into the one shade we have not yet used. This is the shade Hotspot. This looks like a really beautiful pinky, peachy nude shade. Yeah, this is pretty. This is just a basic nude blush shade. This is definitely one I would reach for pretty regularly. I do want to try it with a different brush though. I feel like that one really isn't picking up much pigment. Okay, so this blush is appearing much lighter, but this is totally a shade I would wear regularly. So I really like this shade because this is a perfect everyday shade for me. And that is all of the shades. So let's talk about this palette. Like I mentioned earlier, there's definitely a lot of similarities between this palette and the Orgasm Foreplay Quad that came out earlier this year. I have a lot of shades in here that are very wearable for me, whereas this one has a lot that are not going to work. So I do prefer this one. I also haven't purchased these 6 pans in the past, but I've only really truly fallen in love with Nars in the last couple of years. And I think it was last year that I decided that I was going to start reviewing all of their products. So this is the first time I'm reviewing one of the 6 pans. I think the quality completely stands up to this quad, to their other blushes. I think the quality is very, very similar. If you don't like that baked gelée formula, I would avoid it. I will say that because these are that baked gelée formula, you will get a better color payoff, better pigment with natural hair brushes because they do tend to work better with this type of formula. They'll pick up a lot more pigment, whereas synthetic brushes are going to give you a layer wash. However, I don't own any natural hair brushes, so I find that in order for me to get a similar effect, I just use a more dense synthetic brush, and that's how I get it to work for me. Now let's talk about these shades. So in terms of having shades that are going to work well for me, this palette is almost a bit of a bust. I'm gonna be honest with you, because these 4, like this one is the one that's supposed to be a highlight, but I feel like these top 3 could also be highlights. These 2 are more satin finish formulas, so they look really, really nice, but I feel like these all end up being more so highlights. I think City Lights, this one right here, is a great topper for this one. I also think this would be a great topper for this. It could also work over top of this one. As blushes on their own, I do not like any of these. As a blush, I think they're all either blush topper or more highlighter shades. I just personally do not like them. Keep in mind, I am also very, very fair. So maybe someone with much deeper skin tones would enjoy these more, would get more use out of them as blushes, as blush toppers, as highlighters. I think somebody who's a little bit deeper might get better use out of this exact palette. I do think we have a pretty good variety this year as opposed to some of the shades I've seen in past years. I do think this is a pretty decent variety. Hotspot is incredibly light. It's perfect for me. This highlighter isn't gonna work as a highlight for me. These, I don't really like. I can see myself using these 2 together because I kind of liked that effect when I did that. This one, I can see using it as a topper as well. I don't foresee myself using this one. Again, I'm just really, really fair, so harsher shades can just look way too wild on me. But if you're a little bit deeper than me, you might get better use out of this. I think the quality is great. I think the value's there. If you wanted to pick this up, I still recommend waiting for a sale. I do think it's beautiful though. I think the shades are pretty. Even the ones that don't really work for me are pretty. I wish they weren't so shimmery though. That's the only thing. I would much rather have a full palette of these more satin shades than these super immensely glowy ones. So I think this is beautiful. I think the quality is really nice. I do think if you are wanting it and if you are deeper than me, this is gonna really work for you. I think if you're super fair, I would probably pass on this. And I also think if you don't like super glowy blushes, I would pass on this for sure. Otherwise, I do think it's pretty, and if you like the colors, I don't think you'd be disappointed in this one. If I had to recommend between the 2, because this one is actually still available, I would recommend this one, especially for fair skin tones. Otherwise, I think it's beautiful. It's not my absolute favorite from them, but I do think it's beautiful, and their quality stands up to their other products. So I think it's great. Unfortunately, a bit of a miss with the shades, but that's all in personal preference. But that is it for me today. Let me know if you're picking this one up. Are you thinking about it? If you're not subscribed, I hope you'll do so because my next video will be the eyeshadow palette in this collection, which I'm really excited about as well. So stay tuned for that. That will probably be up tomorrow. So that is it for me today. Thank you so very much for watching. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!